browsing a physical bookstore is actually good for you. Hey guys, my name is Rob. This is my mom Karen. This is Books, Banter, and Beyond, the series that goes to the Next Chapter Bookstore. Today you will truly find out how serious I am about wanting to get into my bookstore because I am, but before we get to that part, let's ask the question, or the topic today. Do we think that being inside the bookstore is not only a fun experience, but actually good for you in multiple ways? And there is proof that, surprise, it is. So obviously, if you don't know, and I don't know why, I'm just kidding. I will be reopening my bookstore soon, hopefully sooner than later. So all of the videos we're doing are kind of the tie-in to what will be, and then we're going to be jumping into bigger events and all that cool stuff too. But this topic right here, as you mentioned before we got on, kind of fits the bill as to why I'm doing all this work to begin with. So you just mentioned, kind of funny enough, how we both agree being in there is great, but being online actually narrows down the process. Even if you go to a library, they have their...
Yeah, I kind of think of it like I feel like I have ADD sometimes when I'm in the bookstore because I don't know where to look first. It's like, first of all, I'm short, and so I have to look, kind of figure out where the column areas tells you what the books are. But I get it's very overwhelming, and I don't know. It's because I've moved online so much. You go to a bookstore online, let's say Barnes and Noble. No, let's just say the Next Chapter, bookstore. But if we were to go there, you're going to focus. You're going to do it by category, right? Or you're going to look for a
Yeah,
particular
the good thing about a website generally is that you have the search bar. If you know what you're looking for, let's say science fiction, or even more specific, let's say Star Wars, you can type in the keyword and whatever is available will pop up. If you go to the library, the same thing. If you go in and say, hey, I'm looking for, Tolkien, what do you have? They can type in his name and give you the catalog.
But the whole point of being in the bookstore, right, is for the experience of being in the bookstore. And so maybe it is, I think, to walk down the aisles. And I think it is to find that book and then to find a chair to sit in, right? It's the experience. Do you lose some of that, though? If you go up to the desk and you say, okay, I'm looking for this book, they find that.
I think so. For the, not answering this question specifically, but for going into, let's say, the library and asking for it, it's definitely going to make the time go quicker to do. If you go in the library and you don't really know what you want, but you're just kind of browsing, then cool. You can just kind of walk up and down the aisles and do whatever. If you are going in, like for instance, if we're doing a show and I'm like, oh, I'm going to grab a book on so-and-so, I'll go in and say, hey, do you guys have anybody from X, Y, and Z?
Right.
That way, at least I'm going in there and not just kind of, weaving through.
Right.
But for this one, though, it does provide a lot of benefits being there. And it's refreshing to break away from your phone, from your tablet, for the physical eyes, but also for the, happy feeling. They say that walking through the aisles, scanning through the shelves, and flipping through the pages engages your senses in ways that just tapping a button isn't going to do. You can't get that replication there. The physical interaction with, touching the books, smelling the books, seeing the covers, all of those things gives your body senses that you have to do by picking something up, as opposed to just seeing it on the screen. And again, you are right, though. When it comes to easy browsing, the website is fine because, if you're short on time, if you have to get something delivered to somebody for a gift, you click, boom, you're done. You don't have to do anything else. The item is shipped over. But really, for me, and you know this, how eager I am to go back into the store, it's the in-person experience, which is funny from me considering my ADD and all that stuff. But there's a difference for me personally of being around people in the store versus being around people outside. And for me, the difference is the books. It's the common ground. And the people coming in are those other adults, those other people that actually appreciate reading.
And have similar interests and like what you like.
And something that we're going to do a little differently is if you can't tell behind me, is bringing that kind of nerdiness into it. So we're going to be giving the experience of people who grew up in the 80s and 90s with things like Pokemon, things like Star Wars, things like whatever. We're going to bring all of that to the store. So not only is it a store to come get your books, but it's a store to relive the things you might have done as a kid,
Right.
the things you might have, watched on TV, the things you might have played with at home, the toys. So really the bookstore is the experience of going. Sometimes I say to people, hey, if you don't leave with one, that's fine. But the fact you came in, you sat down on the beanbag, you sat down the chair, you got a cup of tea, whatever. The fact you came in and kind of engulfed yourself, that's part of the reason I do it. That's part of the bookstore experience. I want you to at least leave, if not with a book, at least with a smile.
Right.
Really cool. I just got to go fight a dragon. I just got to go fly through space. That's what the experience, I think, means to me. And most people I talk to that enjoy the store, that's what they go for. Yes, a lot of people go just because they need a gift and they go and go. But majority of people that are bibliophiles, I think is the word for it, the lover of books, those people go to the bookstore to group with others, to
Right.
find your kind.
Right.
So,
And with the same souls that love what you love, right? And it's not just being there. You can experience it. You actually can feel the we all like this. We all like sitting, and there's memes, there's pictures out there, of people saying,
I mean, it
as long as I'm
reminds
in.
me of, I think you remember back in the day when you used to go play, like Magic cards and Pokemon cards at those that stores, and you would have to go to the store and you would have these tournaments, and you don't do that anymore. Like you don't
No.
see people coming to the store to play or to
Right.
read. And that's kind
Right.
of the idea here. It's do you remember when you were 12 and you got your toys, you drove over, you brought them over, and
Right.
you basically played, and sometimes there were competitions. You could actually win money, or you can win credit. And that's the idea here. That's what the bookstore is. It's the idea of, hey, let's go have an experience. It's like going to the theme park, and the theme park is based on books. That's what the
Right. And that's what you want to bring back to the Next Chapter Bookstore. I mean, that
right.
is
And
what we want to bring to.
that leads us into the second part of the fostering the reading again. So obviously, as much as we want to foster community, obviously, at the end of the day, books are kind of the dying breed a bit. Maybe not as much because you have the Kindle, you have the whatever, but generally speaking, if you ask somebody what their favorite hobby is, reading is up there, but it may not be as high as, let's say, a sport or maybe a hiking thing, which is all great. That's all good stuff. I'm not saying anything bad about that. But what the other thing of being in a bookstore is fostering the want to read. So let's say you haven't read in a while. Let's say you're the parent or you're an adult and it's been, I don't know, 5 years since you've picked up a book. This should get you to do that again. This should say, hey, I didn't know, Robin Williams had a biography, or I didn't know this guy had a thing. It's the fostering the
Right.
brain
Right.
to
So,
open a book.
so you would say then that the physical environment of being in a bookstore, the actual thing of being in a bookstore, is going to influence reading interest, anyways.
Oh, by far. I think generally the human brain works that if you see something, there's a higher chance you're going to touch it, feel it, do something with it than if somebody just says, hey, look what I did. It's cool. You're going to go, okay, I see a picture of it, scroll past the next thing. I think generally when you're there and you have the physical thing, even if you don't, you could put it in their hands, you can point to the thing, or you can say, hey, would you like a cup of tea? Because the items that are related
Right.
all give you that sense. And I
Right.
think there's
Right.
a thing about reading that's not just a book, it's sitting in a chair, having your cup. Maybe your dog or cat is sitting next to you. You have your blanket. That's the idea of the book. And with all of those feelings,
Right.
should foster you to want to.
So, do you think that browsing in bookstores, actually help you focus better, or being online help you focus? Because we kind of touched on it at the beginning of the show. You know,
I mean, so I know I have ADHD. So for me, the easier something is, the better when it comes to quick. So for me, let's say I'm buying socks. I can go on Amazon, I can click on it, it's done, it comes to my door. That's it. I don't have to really worry about it. It's
Mhm.
finished. I think, though, in terms of reading material or media of that sort, I think being there even for me, even with all of the overwhelming colors and everything, I think it does improve my focus to what I'm doing because it shows me various things.
Hmm.
It teaches me about different authors.
Hmm.
And at the end of it, I do end up in one spot. So there might be, this palette of books here, this pile of books over here. But after making the round, you end up at the destination you want to be at, right? And then
Right,
you just end up spending, 3 hours staring at the same thing.
right.
But your focus pinpointed what you were looking for, even if you didn't know what it might have been when you walked in the door.
Do you ever do this where you look online and you see books that you're interested in, and then you go to the physical bookstore to go now that you've kind of an idea what you're looking for, and then you go to the bookstore, and then you hold
So
on.
we do it both ways. So you either see it online and then you go, or you're there and you realize you might be able to get it somewhere, or you might be able to realize you're already reading 5 books, and then you go on your phone and you put it on your to be read. And then that way, when you go back to your list, you go, oh, I remember seeing that book. Then you can go back and pick up the thing. So I think both ways work. Either you see it at the beginning and then you go, or you're at the store and go, okay, I'm already reading 2 books right now, but before I forget the title, let me put it into my Goodreads. And
So you have a tip there. You have a to be read list.
so, okay, so for those who are big on reading multiple at once, it's called the TBR, to be read. And really, I think, I don't remember when it started, but it's been out for a while now. And if you go on Instagram, if you go on YouTube, you see people saying, this is my to be read list. And there's 30, 40 books. And they always joke how they're not going to get around to them because there's so many. But the to be read kind of gives you a way, and something like Goodreads, which we've talked about before, actually has a input function, so you don't have to do anything about it. All you got to do is go in there, you type in the book, you
Right.
check it saying that you want to read
You
it.
put it on the bookshelf. Your bookshelf.
Exactly. And then when you go back to your Goodreads, you can scroll through and go, oh, let's go to this one, and,
Right.
and let's go find that book. So I think there's the bookstore itself,
Yeah.
even if you do have to use technology with it, the bookstore itself allows you to narrow down what you want. But at the same time, after you finish that series, or maybe you finish that genre, you pass by something and go, ooh, and you turn your head and you look and you see that's kind of cool, and you then kind of go down to the rabbit hole of a different author or a different type, a
Right.
different genre. But yeah, I mean, if you can't tell already, I am obsessed with my bookstore. But the one thing I loved about it when we had it before is that you did, it was not just that it was easier. Obviously, when it came to buying, people just came in and got the book and went home. They didn't have to wait for the shipping and stuff like that. But the fact that you did meet people that like to read, or maybe they thought of an idea behind an author that you never thought about, and you're like, oh, and then you go back yourself and go,
Right.
wait a minute, and you start deep diving on all of these people's lives and all
Right.
the stuff.
Right.
One thing that we sometimes did, and it was a little hard to do, was if somebody really loved an author, we'd try to find it for them. And while doing so, we'd end up finding things I never heard of before. And I'm like, wait, what? So, like, before I give it to them, I'm like, I'm going to read this really quick and then I'll put it on the shelf and let you buy it. But there's just so many things that go into it that it's a difference between click and buy and actually kind of taking a minute to sit physically or fictionally
Experience living.
and just kind of enjoying the moment for a few
Yeah.
before going back to work and before going back to whatever you have to
Love
do.
it. Well, I'm looking so forward to, I know probably not as much as you are, but I am looking very forward to the bookstore
I
opening.
was I was ready like
I
yesterday.
know,
So
I know. But in the meantime, we're going to let people know how to access the bookstore at the Next Chapter Bookstore.shop. But if you have your phone out, or you can come back later on, you can QR code this. To scan the QR code, you can go get a paperback, hardbound book, lots and lots and lots of books. And again, they're gently used, so they're priced very, very well. You've got comic books, and then of course you've got merchandise. There is something for everyone. As always, love having conversations with you, Rob. We'll see everyone on the next Books Banter and beyond. Bye.